Miles, Mutants and Microbes is the fifth omnibus novel by Lois McMaster Bujold of the Vorkosigan saga. Even though this one is the fifth published omnibus novel, you should read this one last, however, because the second half of this story chronologically takes place after the three that happen in Miles in Love, which is the sixth omnibus novel. So you don't want to read this one first. So I was definitely taken for a loop. The first one, this book is made up of two novels and a novella. The first one called Falling Free. It's very similar to Ethan of Athos, where it doesn't take place around the same period. Or, I mean, Ethan of Athos does take place in, like, Miles' time, but this one takes place 200 to 300 years before Miles was even born. So it's a prequel for the entire universe, and we're exploring an engineer named Leo Graff, and he's working on a space station with the Quaddies. They are basically genetically engineered people to have no legs. Instead, they have another set of arms. So they look like spider monkeys, and they're all young and very naive, and they're all kept in one space station, but they were basically bred to be the perfect free fall mechanics, because with four arms they can hold on to something while doing something. So Leo's there to basically train them in welding, because there's lots of maintenance that has to go on the space station. However, they find the entire society sort of changing with anti-gravity technology. So when they become sort of, disposable, he ends up having to find out a way to save all of them from certain extinction. So this novel takes place outside of the continuity of the entire Vorkosigan saga. So you can read it any time. You can read it first, you can read it last, you can read it in the middle. But the reason why you need to read this collection specifically after Miles in Love is because the second half is called, well, there's a reprint of Labyrinth, which is weird. In fact, this one, I'm not to criticize the people who select the stories, but this one should have been called Miles, Mutants and Memory or something. They should have put Memory as the second novel, because that would have made more sense. And then you put Diplomatic Immunity. You could collect that with the other ones after Miles in Love. That would make more sense. But either way, the second story is a novella. It's a repeat of what we've seen before, called Labyrinth, the one where Miles goes to Jackson's Hole and deals with the houses there. So you don't have to reread that. So the third one is called Diplomatic Immunity, though. It is a story that takes place after Miles has a few life changes. It basically takes place on one of his further on down his life, so you don't want to read this collection first. But basically, Miles has to go somewhere to investigate a hostage situation, and when he goes there, however, it involves the Quaddies, of course, which is why they're probably collected together. But once he gets there, he finds things are definitely going on a lot differently, because while everyone's stuck with this whole hostage sort of prisoner situation going on, a terrorist reveals themselves and starts doing some real damage to everyone involved, and it ends up putting everyone at risk. So this story was only okay, to be honest. It was kind of simple in its execution and its resolution. I felt myself losing interest, and because Falling Free was also kind of underwhelming, this collection overall has a repeat in the middle, which I think is a mortal sin. So obviously, I mean, you have to read it if you want to. I'm a completist, so I have to read everything. But overall, this collection itself isn't that great. It's still required reading if you want to read the whole thing, but I only give it a 3 out of 5 because the one prequel story is very similar to Ethan of Athos, but I like this prequel story more because it's more interesting, but it's also mercifully too short, so you really get all the characters and it sort of abruptly ends. And then the repeat is lame because you don't want to reread it, and Diplomatic Immunity wasn't that interesting, so I can only give this collection a 3 out of 5.